All right, we're going to get started now. Jack, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. So, folks, we live in a hybrid world, and our next keynote is going to be virtual by Jack McCauley. Jack McCauley is co-founder and chief engineer at Oculus VR. He's one of the great modern inventors, professor and innovator in residence at Jacobs Institute for Design Innovation at UC Berkeley. At Oculus, Jack designed and built Oculus DK1 and DK2 virtual reality headsets, which was later acquired by Facebook for $2 billion. He holds numerous patents in audio effects, virtual reality, motion control, computer peripherals, video games, pretty much everything. And Jack was the chief engineer leading hardware and intellectual property development for Guitar Hero. I heard that game was popular. Jack's most recent R&D is at Black Labs, is a vehicle which incorporates augmented features and a computerized display. So Jack, great to have you here. I'm going to pass it off to you, and please go ahead.
So thank you. It's an honor to be at the Computer Vision Summit, today I wanted to talk, and thanks for the introduction. It's a long career built on with the help of a lot of great people I worked with. You see, I worked in video game development for 40 years. I'm now retired. I'll just tell you briefly how I got hooked up with Oculus. This was 10 years ago, but I worked at Activision on Guitar Hero, and I worked in the intellectual property department. I also built most of the hardware for the guitars, the controller chips and so forth. I didn't do the plastic part, but I did all the intellectual property and the hardware engineering for it. So I get a call from a guy I worked there, Greg Deutsch, worked with at Activision. Greg Deutsch, he's the IP attorney, intellectual property attorney, patent attorney, and says, "Hey, there's this guy that I know who's going to bring down something to show to you, and they're looking for someone to help them produce it, a hardware engineer." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll see." And this guy shows up here at the door. I'm sitting about 2 feet away from the door right now, and he shows the door, and I look at him and look in his hand, and he's got this foam core board piece of box with a Scott ski strap attached to it. And I go, "Oh no." He's got a laptop in his hand, and he smiles and comes in and he goes, "You got to see this." So okay, I'll take a look at it. We talked about Greg and so forth, but I put it on, and I was pretty much enthralled with it. I thought it visually. And there was a guy named John Cormack, who's a famous video game developer, who ported a game to the headset. So you had this full visual thing going on. It had some problems. The tracking system was kind of not so great, but I got it. I could see where they were going with it. So they said, "We need help making this." And I said, "They want to come on board?" And I said, "Let's try each other out and see how it goes," and kind of messed around for a couple of weeks, and then I came on board. So I was probably third or fourth person at the company at the time. This guy Palmer Luckey, who built the foam core board prototype with Carmack, this guy John Carmack. And so that's how that got started. But my point is that in the connections that were formed in relationships in the video game business, I worked in entertainment, of course, so it's very small. And, you've got to, you work at one company, you go to one studio, you quit, you go to another studio, you see some of the same people, they're moving around. And so this is true with every place. I was at Electronic Arts, Sony, Konami, Namco, a bunch of companies, Microsoft for a long time. So this is the point of my talk today. A couple things is, the human relations part. They call those things soft skills. There's a guy, a professor at UC Berkeley called Saksulu, who said to me one day, "Oh, those are soft skills." And I just keyed in on that, and I wasn't really aware of it. I keyed in on the artifact of the human factor portion of it. So, wind forward 10 years or so, and I'm working at UC Berkeley. I got my foot in the door there. I funded the construction of a makerspace on campus with Paul Jacobs, the chairman of Qualcomm, and I built a place essentially with some help. the way that I got dialed into back to Berkeley, I'm an alumni, class of 86 in EECS, electrical engineering, is because the guy I worked with at Guitar Hero, Charles Huang, he's the head of the alumni association there. He got me back involved. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm working with Charles at Red Octane, which is Activision. Essentially, they bought our company, Guitar Hero franchise. And Charles hooks me back up with Berkeley. So here I'm back. I'm a trustee of the university and so forth. This is sort of my point. I mean, it all sort of flowers from some seed and grows, and then you meet this person, you meet another person, and I follow them on Facebook and so forth. But it worked out really well for me. Now, my skill set, I'm highly skilled at this. I've been doing it for 40 years. I'm very, very fast at it. I can get stuff done very quickly because I have a lot of experience. Am I the best software engineer? No, not the best, but I can do the work. I can program and do the coding and so forth. Am I the best hardware engineer? I think I'm pretty good at hardware engineering. So these are the sort of the skills that I fermented over many years, and I did a lot of different things at a studio. At a game studio, I mean, I liked working in those places. I'm not much of a corporate guy, but I like that stratification where there's a manager or a boss, but underneath that, it's just flat construction. Much like the Apollo missions were organized that way because they realized with layers of management, things don't go as fast. And more bureaucracy and politics and so forth that go along with that. But at a studio, we don't have that really. It's a little bit, but it doesn't interfere with what you're trying to get done. And I can walk over to an artist and tell him something, or I can walk over to a producer and have a chat with him, or the sound guy. And that's just what I dug, because it made things happen really fast. And I'll give you an example. The Oculus headset, DK1, the very first headset we produced from Palmer Luckey's foam core board prototype, John Carmack's also, was done from a whiteboard sketch to full mass production to meet our Kickstarter obligation in 90 days. 3 months we did the whole thing. That's with the team working feverishly. The team in China, we had a staff in an office in China working with the contract manufacturer. That's with everybody hustling, working 12, 13 hours a day. And that's amazing. And that's just teamwork and cohesion and people getting along with one another mostly and so forth. And this is another thing about working in the games industry. It's brutal. If you're thinking about doing that for a living, and I'm sure since this is a computer vision summit, some of you out there are working in video games, it's a haul, because you're working. The franchise launches usually right around Black Friday in November. Traditionally, in the United States is when we launch games, getting ready for Christmas. This is a very busy time prior to that. Now, once the game's launched, you split and you take a breather. But man, I worked 12, 14 hours a day I do that for 4 or 6 months or something like that, weekends, and then slack, take some time off and do my own thing. And what you see behind me is my own thing. This is my private development facility and research facility. I like working on cars. I like cockpit games like Forza and Gran Turismo. This is my thing. So I build cars and things like this here. I also spent the better part of last year working in cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? How secure are cell phone towers? How secure is your cameras, in your Wi-Fi based cameras on your property? They're security cameras. And so that's what I do. I just hustle. Now I'm retired now. I don't work in video games anymore, but I still do development work. I still do inventing and so forth. Let me talk to you a little bit about how when you're going to go to a startup company, you're not going to get paid a big salary. I had like boom bust cycles in my career where I was doing really well, and then like Guitar Hero, for instance, it was great. 64 million units. I mean, it was just phenomenal. A $2 billion franchise. The first $1 billion franchise in video game history was Guitar Hero. And then you try doing other stuff, and it doesn't work out quite like I had 2 camera companies that went they failed. And then Oculus comes along. Who knows how Oculus is going to turn out? I had no idea. I was kind of down on it a little bit because I didn't think that people wanted necessarily to live in a virtual world and walk around and I think a lot of this stuff that's come out, there's a few good titles for VR that have come out, is just not that intriguing. You see a video game, with the exception of Guitar Hero mostly, it has to tell a story. You live in the game and you're playing the game. It's not necessarily a visual thing. It's the story and the relationships, the online relationships you have in the game with friends you're playing with. You could be playing with people in Russia, maybe not now, but people in Japan and Australia, all playing on the same team. It's a social aspect of it that's quite important, and the visual stuff is not as important. There's a game called Squad, which is a great game, very, very good, and the graphics are kind of not the best, but it doesn't matter because the game has great play. So my point here is that in regards to Oculus, I didn't really get the visual part of it. I thought it was visually intriguing, especially if you're doing design work and so forth like that. It's really good, but for gameplay, not so much. I will comment briefly on the metaverse efforts. Of course, as you probably know, most of you know out there that Facebook acquired Oculus in 2014. They bought the business. They bought all of the staff, mostly. Some people didn't decide to go, but they bought the staff mostly. We all transitioned into working at Facebook on their virtual reality program, which Mark Zuckerberg was very intrigued with at the time. The thinking is at the time was that there would be a virtual world, and you could go into this virtual world and do things in there and go to different environments and different worlds. And some of it on the Quest in particular is pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Some of it not so good. But the vision, I guess, at Oculus time was it would be a metaverse that you could live and play, like Ready Player One, the movie. And how has that panned out? Well, Facebook is not a video game company. It's an advertising company. They sell ads. That's what they do. That's their revenue. And it's a social media company, but it's mostly advertisements. It's not their familiarity with the video game world. They're not that cognizant of it. I watched them make mistake after mistake in the past 2 years, primarily with showing clips of video games which looked like Second Life from 20 years ago. It just didn't seem to be communicating well. And what you do in a video game, you never show portions of the game prior to launch. You show them a video clip, an animation, and so forth, like an ad, but you never show them. But what Facebook did was very different. They showed actually clips of the game in development where it was very rough, and I think it probably turned a lot of people off to the world they're trying to build, which is called Horizon World. So it kind of did, and I did think they made a lot of mistakes there. Now, can they recover from that? I'm not sure. The issues with vestibular illness, which is dizziness, still exist in VR. They have not. It's gotten better. Still, about 5% of the people that wear VR headsets feel ill. This is a problem. And the launch and the marketing and so forth has kind of been a little confusing. So, but can they recover from that? I hope so. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that happen. And is the Facebook executive staff open to suggestions? It appears not to be the case. There's a saying at Facebook that's KMH, keep Mark happy, which is like a top-down sort of dictatorial way of doing artwork, and I just don't think that's a functional scenario for doing video game stuff, not in my experience. So anyhow, I've had great relationships with my colleagues and over the years, and I always sort of look back and let's see, here's a pro tip. Let's say you go to work at a company, right? And you're there 4 or 5 years. Stay 5 years. Don't quit in 6 months and just stay there. unless the place goes under or something like that, but stay there. And then when you leave, stay in touch with people. Like I call people. I still talk to my colleagues at Activision and so forth, and particularly the people that I work with in management, I stay in touch with those people. And I call them, and it's genuine. I'm generally interested in them. And so that's just the thing, is like when I did that, and that, just like the Greg Deutsch example that I gave you earlier, I get callback on stuff later. Not now, because I'm tired, but I get callback and offers. And so that's just how I sort of played the thing, and it worked out very well for me. I have here a slide deck that I'd like to play of early pictures of Oculus. Now, this is 10 years ago, in 2012, most of them. And it tells a little bit of a story about the formation of the company. I just threw this together a half hour before this Zoom thing here, so bear with me. It is really the evolution of the company as to where it is today. And let me pull that up here. I'll share that, and let's see how it goes. I'll narrate it too. Okay. Host, can you share this? Let me do the screen sharing, please.
I believe yeah, we can. I see our technical guru working hard on that.
All right. So, barring that not working, I have some other things to discuss today, and in regards to education, which is my foundation. Is
Jack, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think my mic was muted. So I think you should be able to share now, right?
Hey.
Try it.
It won't let. It says the host has disabled participants screen sharing.
All right. 10 more seconds.
Okay. So I have a foundation, and the purpose of this foundation was to bring young people in here in the foster system. Originally, the purpose was in 2019, prior to COVID, and teach them salable skills like running machines, soldering, basic hand skill stuff, nothing complicated. I have some success stories there. One of the guys that came in who didn't have the best of circumstances, dad in jail, mom addicted and bad stuff, and then he gets put in a foster home. This kid was brilliant. He got a full ride to go to a UC campus, not Berkeley, but another one. And he was just really, really sharp. And the funny thing was, he's like, with his background in Oakland, in a bad family and all that, bad birth family, you'd think that would rub off on it, but it didn't. He showed up here at 8 o'clock in the morning, standing outside the door in khakis and a nice shirt. I'm like wearing shorts and a dirty t-shirt. So, and that guy went to UC in this mechanical engineering. So, I've had a couple of people in here doing well. I've got a guy in here right now who's doing really well. So this is the purpose of the foundation, is to just give them a chance. And sometimes when they get launched out of the foster system, they end up living in a car or couch surfing. But now they get paid a salary. It's not the best salary, but they get paid a living wage, and they get to learn. So this was the purpose of the foundation. So let me try my screen sharing again. Oh, what do you know? Let's see here. Hold on a second, please. Can you see it?
We can see it.
Great. All right. So this is Oculus VR at the beginning. Now, winding my story back up, the guy shows up at my door with a foam core board prototype. A couple weeks later, shows up with this kid, 19-year-old kid. Nice kid. I love Palmer Lucky. He was a great guy. Shows up here, and I don't know what to think, but I went for it because I like them. That's the primary reason. The device is intriguing and cool, but I like the people I was working with, and I thought it would work out well. So here it is, the beginning. And so I've got about 10 pictures or something like that here, and I'll narrate them. Hold on. So this guy in the middle with the lamp shade on his head, is named Brendan Uribe. I've never met anyone more talented than this guy. He's a software engineer, but he's absolutely brilliant presenter and marketeer. That is the guy that put everything together, found the funding and financing with Andreessen Horowitz, got his own money. Everyone that joined the company, with the exception of a few who didn't have any money, but I had means, and so did Brennan, put money into the venture to make it work. And this is the seed money for it. This shows the investors that, hey, these people are on board. They got their own, they got money and skin in the game, right? The skin in the game. So they got money in. So Brendan's the guy in the middle, amazing. So I had nothing to do with the Kickstarter video. It was professionally produced. And interesting enough, there's another guy in a future slide here named Nate Mitchell. I go to Nate one day, I go, man, who put that together? It's so well done. He goes, and he's 23 years old. He goes, I did. I put the whole thing together. I go, amazing. So Brendan was amazing, and so was Nate. Mike Antonoff, the guy with the glasses on there, is a software engineer. He's also a co-founder. He also put money in. Mike and Brendan had another company called Scaleform, which was their first successful exit at 30 mil. So these guys know what they were doing. Young guys, so what? They knew what they were doing. And me being an engineer, I didn't do too much of the finance stuff. I knew that with these guys and the talent that I could see in front of me, we could go somewhere. So they filmed the entire thing at this facility here, this place you see upstairs. They didn't have an office. They asked me if I could do it. I said, sure, why not? Let's do it. And so this went out and generated a lot of buzz. And the way it was presented, now, was it necessarily that real? Not overly, but kind of. So, that's what it was. So they filmed it here. It came out, it launched. I watched it. I was amazed by the professionalism. So let's just go to the next slide. So there's Palmer, Lucky, and Nate Mitchell, the two other co-founders. Palmer, of course, is the guy that built the foam core board headset and produced it as a prototype. And this prototype was used for DK1, which is a first developer kit. As I mentioned, we produced it in 90 days, from the time it was scribbled onto a whiteboard, the time it was in mass production and shipping. And we had to do that because Kickstarter, you don't get paid until you ship the item. So we sold 10,000 on Kickstarter to start, and then it went to 70. So it went 70,000. Now in the video game world, that's a dud, but for what this thing was at the time, that's pretty good. And we were actually making money on it. So this was in 2012, October 2012. I took them to China. I'm very, very familiar and knowledgeable about mass production of plastic gadgets and video game controllers. So this is the factory here that we did the manufacturing at. By the way, they're now, they retired, the people that owned it. She's a close friend of mine, the woman that owned the factory, and they're just marvelous. They just do a fantastic job. The tooling, the fit, the plastic injection quality is top-notch stuff. They also built probably a third of the Guitar Hero controllers through Elaine and because I introduced them to Activision because I knew her. They produced it here, and behind them sits a 600-ton injection molding machine. That's a big one, and that's used for high thin-walled, high pressure plastics and so forth. So this is them standing there, and let me go down. Oops. And this is myself and the woman that owns the factory to my right, and another guy that was the head engineer, and we're discussing how to go about producing this in 90 days. And it was very, very challenging to do that. So we're going over the schedule. We're looking at what's in this guy's hand. In the middle is a display. We got a hold of displays. We couldn't even find panels to put inside the headset. Very hard to find them because we had a very short period of time. They managed to find them for us. And so we were looking at the quality of the panel here. And interesting, this thing here is a turntable, and this is at this facility. We use this turntable to calibrate the gyro sensor in the headset. You'd physically put the headset on this turntable and turn it, and therefore it'd allow you to calibrate the rate of turn with what the IMU, which is this gyro sensor, was said it was doing. So this is an interesting thing. We used this because it was cheap, it was available, and it was extremely accurate. there was a Stanton ST150 turntable that we produced and wrote all the software and then did the work with it. So, and just kind of, this is the way it's done. It's like you just grab whatever you can get and use it. Later on, though, we built our own stuff, but this worked marvelously well. And there's John Carmack, the famous 3D guy. You're probably familiar with him, some of you folks out there. And that's myself. And this is at the Oculus headquarters in Irvine, California, down south. I'm in Silicon Valley area. This is down south between San Diego and LA. And so you see the 6.6 sign there. Well, we built a storyboard type thing with numbers on it to tell us how many units we were selling. This is right when Kickstarter launched, right at the minute. Instantly sold 66. And then we kept the numbers posted up there, and it went up to 11,000, 70,000. So we had to add an extra digit there. So that's John and myself. Now, I was commuting from Silicon Valley area down there, but most of my career I worked in Los Angeles, and that's where all the entertainment companies are. So that was our staff. We had 2 floors in a high-rise, and it quickly filled up. It looked like a studio, brilliantly put together by Brendan Uribe to appear as if we knew what we were doing. We did, but to make it look good, because when you bring in investors, Andreessen Horowitz, they want to see stuff. They don't want to see you guys working in their garage, although they get that. So, oops, sorry, folks. And that's in China. That's a China team. In the center is Nate Mitchell. To his right is one of the earliest employees, the young woman. To his left, rather, the young woman there. That's Rita Chen. She was my assistant. And that's Nirav Patel, to Nate's second from Nate's right, who also was employee number 5 or something like that. So we were very small. This is prior to the Irvine office. And I took them over there to show them the factory, to instill confidence in them we could do this and get it done. And of course we did. So, and these other people here, the woman that's turned with her right shoulder looking at me is a friend of mine from China. And and that's her brother to her right. And I just love working in China. It was a great experience. I think it's different now. This is 10 years ago. There's a change there. But I sort of watched that area develop too. And I've been going there since 1999 was my first trip over there. So, and talk about whiteboarding. This is the whiteboard for DK1, and what to include. What's it going to look like? And if you're familiar with it, in the center it says LED blue. That's the general shape. I sketched this out on the board, just out of my head, and kind of looked like that. But we were going to have to get this thing done so quickly that we didn't have time to develop a design spec. The design spec was this. Took a picture of it, sent it back to us, and let's build this. The factory did majority of the work on DK1 hardware. The lenses for it came from Palmer Luckey. He got them on eBay. So we copied his lenses because we didn't have time to do optics development for it. So, and this was the very first shots of DK1, and that is Nate Mitchell, their co-founder. Nate's an amazingly. I worked with some smart people. These guys were very, very sharp, and Nate's a young guy. He's in his early 20s, and I think Brendan, the boss, was in 31 at the time. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 31, something like that. So this was, just the genesis of the company. Now, what did Mark Zuckerberg see in Oculus? He must have seen something. I think a part of the sale was the fact that we had a great guy who could sell water to you. It's an example. He could sell anything, and he's a good engineer. I think that they saw something there that they wanted to take Facebook in a different direction. And at the time, Facebook was growing very rapidly. They had plenty of cash. $2 billion, rather, is not a lot of money to a company like Facebook. It was actually more than $2 billion. I hear that it was quite a bit more. But what did they want? They wanted the know-how. They wanted the staff and the people because Facebook does not know how to make hardware, and we did. That's what they wanted. This is a production line. Now that I'm looking at this, this isn't Oculus' stuff. This is electronic art stuff I did. I built a game for electronic arts called Active, and this was the heart rate monitor. But this is the same factory. We built those there also. I took everything to this factory because we're doing the boutique, mid-range production, mass production line stuff. Anything super high volume, you wouldn't take it here. Anything low volume, you wouldn't take it to Foxconn, because we interviewed Foxconn, which is a big contract manufacturer, and they just said, no, we can't. We don't have the staff to support you. So we took it here. That's a game Active I built the hardware for. It's a heart rate monitor and motion sensing stuff. So, but same stuff. Okay, there's the last slide, and that's me screwing around. This was development of Oculus's DK1. And in the background, you can see all the plastic guitars and drums from Guitar Hero. Also, there's a gun up in the back that's mine too. So anyway, so thank you. Let's go back to the. And so now I think if there's any questions, and I don't know how this is going to work exactly, either in the chat box or audible questions, I can take those.
Thank you, Jack. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do a couple of questions, and you should be able to hear them.
Okay.
Anyone? Does anyone have a question here? Oh, I see it right there. You got it. Okay.
Hey, Jack. Very inspiring talk. I especially liked what you said about the work you did with the foster children. But on a separate note, do you have a prediction for where all this metaverse technology is going? It seems like it's one of the super hot buzzwords right now. So where do you see the technology going in terms of like actually finding a home in, I don't know, maybe all of our homes?
Well, what's intriguing to me about it is that, first of all, you don't need a headset to be in the metaverse. You can use your iPhone. This has the power of a PlayStation 4. Wouldn't be in stereo, but many of the aspects of the metaverse you could do on your phone. The thing that was intrigued me, the Ready Player One movie, is that like that, but it would have its own currency. You could live anywhere you want in the world. You could be anyone you want. You could drive a Lamborghini or whatever. I think that's intriguing. A total escape. The storytelling part of it is not clear. As I mentioned, game has to, with a few exceptions, Guitar Hero doesn't really tell a story, but Guitar Hero is fun though, has to tell a story when you're playing it. You have to feel engaged and in the presence of other people work on the game. So this is the thing about the metaverse that I see. It's not, they stumbled with. And I'm not going to give up on what they're trying to do. I think it's too early, and they certainly have the capital and the investment. That they have tons of money. Facebook, right? I mean, let's face it, they're a wealthy company. To put something out there and make it work. I've read some reviews, Wall Street Journal, others that sort of gave it a big thumbs down. Somebody said it was, instead of Horizon Worlds, called Horrible Worlds. I don't agree with that. But I think it's just going to take some time. It's a massive endeavor to create a complete artificial world. Can you imagine how many artists and engineers and producers it would consume? Tons and tons of staff and people and hardware engineers and so forth. So it's just going to take time. Facebook has a meteoric rise in the stock. Last July was at 382. Now it's at 130. They're taking a beating, as have a lot of companies are taking a beating because of the COVID stuff. But I think if they stick with it, they can do it. I wish Mark Zuckerberg was more familiar with the video game world, and I wish he was more familiar with being open to listening to his staff. I think that's maybe a problem. Is that if when you're working at a game company, there's people there. That's all they do. I mean, they just play video games constantly, and they love it. That's their whole life. And you got to listen to them because they know that world really well. If you're not doing those kinds of hires, and if you do hire the right people and you don't listen to them, it's at your bane. It will cause damage. So this is my thing. Is like you just listen to the folks and they tell you that's not going to work because of this, and and you just got to listen to them and implement it. So I don't think that's happening. That's my feel. Morale, of course, is affected when you get poor reviews, and so they just got to have to deal with that. Personally, going to Facebook and working at Facebook, I just don't think that it's for me. I couldn't work there. It's just too big, and getting stuff done would frustrate me. And so if they're going to do a hiring influx, they're going to have to change the way the company's structured and isolate the game development part of it from Facebook and just put it out separate somewhere and just leave it alone. Let them progenerate and produce their own stuff. They know what they're doing. You hire the right people. So hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Jack. That was a great question. Great answer. We have time for one more. All right.
Hi, okay, you can hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. First of all, thank you for the talk. Second, I know you were talking about the foster homes or like those young out of foster homes, and what advice would you give to a young ECE or electrical engineering student or someone who's interested in startups in general? Like, what type of advice would you give to those, or maybe those type of, what advice you give to those kids who come out the foster homes, et cetera?
Well, so, the interview process, it's not like we take anyone that walks in here. It doesn't work that way. You have to interview them. And quite frankly, it's hard to say who's intelligent and who's capable. You just can't tell by looking at someone. It's impossible to do that. You have to sit down with them, talk about what they do. And the other thing is, like, people who come from a disadvantaged background, you can't, through the interview process, you can't really judge them based on that. I mean, that's in your mind. It's like, this guy's been through hell and blah, 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 but you can't. And if you want to watch a person grow, it's kind of like the Mark Zuckerberg. You kind of have to leave them alone a little bit and let them figure things out on their own, and they'll ask you questions. So I think what I'm saying is that you don't judge a book by its cover. You can't tell. I've worked with people who were less than impressive, who had really high level of education too, and so it's just hard to judge people by looking at them. You got to get them in and interview them and sit down with them. In your regards to a startup, I always say this to people who are getting out of college, not to uninspire you, but get a job and learn the skills really, really well, and then go to a startup. Stay at a company for 5 years and polish your programming or hardware engineering or whatever you're doing, art, whatever it is. Then you're salable. They're going to want to hire you, and you'll lead. If you go out of college and right out of college, you've got all of the math and whatever you've learned there. It's wonderful stuff, but it's not high value stuff, and you're better off just getting a company and learning how to program first. I did programming in college, but I wasn't a programmer. I was an electrical engineering, computer science guy. So I learned it all on my own. I just picked it up and started doing it, and I got pretty good at it. I'm at the best, like I said, but I'm good at it. I'm fast. My speed. It takes 10,000 hours to learn how to play an instrument. Wow, 5 years at 2,000 hours a year. 10,000 hours. That's what a conductor told me. Programming, it's faster than that, but it still takes 5 years to get good at it. Some people are better than others and pick it up faster. Some people are meticulous and slow and very careful. It just depends. But you got to give yourself some time to learn it. And so that's my advice. Is don't run into a startup. Don't judge a book by its cover. The guy that came in here, the guy I mentioned, you know what his name was? His parents named him Weeb. I'm like going, you gotta change your name. You gotta call yourself Weeb. And his middle name was Amin, and so he just called himself Amin. It's just like, if you want to screw someone, call him Weed. Name him Weed. It's like out of the gate, not so great. So, but he's doing great. I just talked to him a month ago or so. He calls me once in a while and says hi, and asks me how I'm doing. And one more thing, I know that it's the end of our talk. It's like, you know that box you check when you apply for college that says your race? And I'm looking at him, I'm going, dude, check the box, it'll help you. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't check the box. He says, I don't need to do that. I can do it on my own. I don't need to check the box. I thought that was a great response. It's not what I would have done. I would have checked the box. Of course, it didn't make a difference with me, but, so, anyhow.
All right.
I hope that answers your question. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jack. This was great. Appreciate your time, and that was fantastic. So we're going to move on to the next session, and feel free to log off or stay in. But yeah, everyone please give a big hand for Jack.
Thank you.